right, Roothy's just signing his last windscreen banner now. He's going to make his way up to the stage to talk to us a little bit about what's happening in Stockton. Now, before we do that, I'd like to ask you all to join me in giving a special thanks to all of the Unlock Australia volunteers that have donated their time today. They've got the guys standing out in the rain doing the parking. They've missed everything because they've been out there doing their bit and making sure that everything runs smoothly. All the guys on the merchandise tent, helping out with the kids' rides, the boys from Forward Drive Action. They've all donated their time, so thank you to the volunteers.
Yeah, too right. And how's Lisa? Have you seen Lisa? That's Dave's wife over there. She's pregnant in the merch. I think she's going to have a baby any minute. But she reckons it's pretty important for her kid too, for their kids when they grow up. Thank you very much, guys.
So before we start, John, there's one more person I want to thank. That's a fellow by the name of Ozcam, who has come all the way from Cape York to be here today. Can you believe that?
Far out. That's a big effort. Where are you, mate?
Oh, he's the ghost who walks, mate. Doesn't want to be seen.
Oh, well, there's a lot of people live up Cape York and, do it because there's not many people. Oh, okay. The speech. Look, first of all, let me thank you again for coming. I know it's raining. I seem to attract the rain when I come to Newcastle. But that doesn't matter because it hasn't dampened your enthusiasm, and that's wonderful. And that's what we're going to need more and more. As far as I'm concerned, this is just the start, I've been one of the luckiest blokes on earth. Most of my life has involved travelling in the bush one way or another as in all sorts of things. And as a journalist the last 15, 20 years. Trail bike tours, all sorts of things. Shearers, cook. I've seen so much of the bush that I get to see what's happening now, which is the amount of bush that's being shut down. And the pattern is always the same. It's exactly what's happening here at Stockton. Slightly different. Every place is different. But the pattern is always the same. One day it's a free-for-all. Everyone just does whatever they want, which means there's a handful, just a handful of idiots who go and drop their rubbish or leave their beer bottles there or whatever they do, leave rubbish lying around, mess it up for the rest of us. As far as I'm concerned, if you love your country, you are desecrating it by littering it. It's that simple, okay? And I know too, because of my travels, that an awful lot of rubbish is not even ours. It's backpackers. It's very unfortunate. I shouldn't even have to say that. I was a backpacker once, not here. But it's such an easy thing to do. When you come from some tiny little crowded country and you get to somewhere as big as Australia, as vast as Australia, you don't know where the next rubbish dump is. You don't know how much they're going to charge you when you're on your $2.80 a day lentils only diet. And so you wind up dumping your rubbish or digging a hole and hiding it or something like that. I think we need a big sign in the airport saying if you dump rubbish in Australia, you can go straight home. Bang. Because rubbishing your country is desecrating it. It's that easy. It's taken me a long time to get there. I'm a lot older than most people here. Yeah, I know, there's a couple that might hit my age. I'm looking at you, mate. But we've all gone through that stage, In the 80s, they had a Do the Right Thing campaign. The government, it was actually the most successful public behaviour campaign ever. And I think we need one again. There's all sorts of things we need. Common sense solutions. But rubbish is always the first thing that comes up. Oh, people left rubbish there. We're going to have to gate it off. I suppose we could clean it up, but it's easier to gate it off. And then the next one is usually the same. It's conservation area. And you guys are messing it up by coming in and having campfires and stuff like that. Well, look, as somebody who has travelled so much in this country, I can tell you it's a huge place, okay? It's massive. If you take an aerial shot of just one place, take the Victorian High Country, and you take all the human footprint there, sealed roads, towns, corrals, cattle, sheds, everything. Tracks, it's 0.04% of the entire area. And yet they go, oh, we've got to shut that down. You know? Or the next big furphy, don't pick up the firewood. Hey? Well, we just leave it there till the place burns down again next time. The sort of people who come up with these solutions don't like people. I've just come back from Tasmania, and the situation down there is really quite chronic. On the one hand, it's the prettiest part of Australia. It's got the most wilderness, and we should be battling hard to save it. But we should also be battling hard to keep it open so that we can have a look at it and camp in it and love it. Because at the end of the day, that's the only difference between us and the extreme Greens. They want to shut you out and let the wilderness run free. We want to get in there and enjoy it and love it and appreciate it and then leave it and come out. When you consider the size of Australia and the number of people who live here, the fact that they can shut a place off is ridiculous. Then they have other arguments. And a lot of conservation, you know, let's face it, we all want it. It's not a problem. We don't want to see these places destroyed, but there's usually a better way of doing it. Cultural significance. The middens in Stockton. It's another issue that gets brought up. Yes, of course, we need to identify these areas and avoid them. We'll get to that later on. There are ways around this, but at the end of the day, increasingly, what we're seeing right across this country is exactly what you're seeing if you've tried to go for a little bit of a slightly off-the-track exploration on an old track in the Wattigans, and there's a gate. Or you've tried to access Stockton, where the current plan, which thanks to the Warramai people who want us to see their country, the current plan still limits you to 7% of what was available only a few years ago. That's not good enough. That's the influence of a Greens punctured parks as far as I'm concerned. I don't blame them. They reckon they're under-resourced. They reckon they've got to find ways to raise money. They've got all sorts of other things going on. But there are better solutions than just chucking up gates. We'll talk about those later, I hope. At the end of the day, guys, we're at the end of about a 10 to 15 year swing where a handful of people have held the majority sway in politics. And this has happened pretty much across Australia. And the result is that they're having their own way. I wouldn't mind if their own way was sensible. I wouldn't mind if their own way suggested solutions, but it doesn't. They have this attitude that they don't like people, and that's about it. It's unfortunate, isn't it? You know what proves that more than anything? In Tassie last week, I met a couple of grey nomads, and grey nomads are a large part of what we're trying to do, because at the moment, as you're probably aware, if you got a caravan or something, most 80%, over 80% of the caravans built come out with toilet and shower facilities. Why is that? Solar power. Why is that? Because people like to free camp on the side of the road, don't they? And every 3 or 4 days they'll pull into a caravan park, get their washing done or whatever. But nobody, especially in your retirement years when you're running on the same sum of money, when you're not making it constantly again, nobody wants to be forced to spend every night in a big four. That is going to kill free travelling in Australia. There's got to be better ways, hasn't there? We've got a whole industry of people doing this. You know what I found out the other day? You probably did too. I was in Tassie, so I didn't get to hear until a couple of days later. They've just shut down completely free camping in Victoria. So that means now, when you take your kids down to see the Victorian High Country, which is one of the most beautiful parts of the world, bar none, when you take your kids down, you're not just slugged the few $1,000s in fuel to get there. You're not just slugged all the costs involved in a family holiday. When you get there and you erect your tent and you get your bed out and your fridge working, you'll be paying per person every night to be there. Services offered, the right to be there. That's it. That's not good enough, is it? That's ridiculous. And what's their reason? Oh, we need money. Okay. Well, wasn't it our tax money that bought all these places in the first place? Wasn't it just normal people like you and me who work for a living, who pay taxes, who don't have time to run out and chain ourselves to trees? Aren't we the people who aren't government funded who deserve to access the bush we paid for? Don't you think so? Yeah, cool. That's why you're here. I could go on and on about this at length, and you know I could, because, you know, as a journalist, for a lot of my life I got paid by the word, and for the rest of it, well, I've been married. And you've got to talk quick, otherwise you won't get a word in. It's that simple. I know, and this is just an aside, because so many people asked me when I was over there before, and this has nothing to do with Unlock Australia, okay? But what happened to the yellow truck the other day? How come there's photos on Facebook of it on its side? It's called complacency. It's called stupidity. And I'm responsible. We've just done 11 days of the toughest DVDs I've ever done in my life in Tasmania, or anywhere. I mean, they just happened to be in Tasmania. And I was really tired. It was late on the end of the last day. We had achieved in 12 hours 3 kilometres. Now, anyone out there who knows a bit about travelling in the bush knows that you could pretty much sprint through the mud quicker than that. But it had been a big day, you know, lots of tyres off rims, lots of axles broken, lots of stuff like that. We had seen country, old forest country, that you could not access any other way. It was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And I'm on what I think has got to be the only flat spot around, and I just wanted to have a look around the next corner because it's just about dark, and I pulled the handbrake on and left the engine running because I'd just been through 60 metres of mud and I didn't want a chance to start a motor. Now, everyone out there knows what happened. I walked around the corner and I heard a huge crunching noise. My truck had rolled backwards just a little bit and fallen over on its side. The prettiest 40 series in Australia. Now I'm going to have to turn it into a dual cab. Where do you want to go, Rick? Have I covered most of the bases? I'm not even sure if I have.
Well, mate,